Are we on? Are we on? Welcome to Basketball Heads Live. I am your host, Glenn Poole Harding. And oh boy, we have a very, very, very special guest. On this Thanksgiving, I'm very thankful tonight to have our next guest in the show. So to everybody out there, all my basketball heads, I want to wish you and your family a very blessed Thanksgiving. Now on with the show. This basketball head is a former legendary head coach of Fairleigh Dickinson University. Yes, he was my coach and the man that taught me about the business of college athletics. Before he became a legendary head coach, this basketball head was a point guard at Syracuse University from 1968 to 1971. After his college career was over, he began coaching at Drew University from 1971 to 1972 before going back to his alma mater at Syracuse University. At Syracuse, he became an assistant coach with another legendary coach, Jim Boeheim, under another legendary coach, head coach Roy Danforth, who would later become athletic director at FDU. This basketball head will continue to assist Coach Danforth at the University of Tulane before taking the head coaching job at Fairleigh Dickinson University in 1983, where he will rack up 4 Northeast Conference championships from 1985, 1988, 1998, and 2005, which led to 4 NCAA appearances. Or maybe it was 3, but we'll find that out when he comes in the show. He also made 2 national invitational tournament appearances in 1988 and 2006. And oh yeah, this is the ball, one of the balls from 1988 when we made our appearance in the NIT. This basketball head will also become 2-time Coach of the Year while at FDU. This basketball head will compile the most wins in FDU program's history with a record of 407 and 351 for winning 54% of all his games played. His 260 conference victory still ranks first all time among Northeast Conference's coaches. Man, we talking about legendary. He finished his tenure with a record of 260 and 190 against league foes, which represents better than 60% in his winning percentage. After leaving FDU, this basketball head became the head coach at SUNY City College in 2011 before retiring in 2017. So, without further ado, help me welcome to the show, Fairleigh Dickinson University legendary head coach, Tom Green.
Y'all ready?
Y'all ready?
Yes. You have just stepped into the world of chaos. Where everybody goes hard. Come on. Go hard. Go hard. Go hard. Go hard. Go hard. Or go home. Never back down. You gotta hold your own. Go hard. Go hard. Go hard. Go hard. Go hard. East Coast. Go hard. West Coast. Go hard. Midwest. Go hard. Dirty. Hurry up, everybody. Get online, buy your tickets, cause the game about to start.
Coach, how you doing? How you doing?
Glenn, I'm great. I am absolutely great. Great seeing you here too.
Yes. First of all, I want to say thank you for joining us tonight. I know your family has a big day scheduled for tomorrow. It's good that we can get you on right before Thanksgiving because I'm very thankful for having you on tonight.
Glenn, we have an awful lot to be thankful for, obviously outside of basketball and then personally as well. So you have your health and you have your friends, you have everything.
That's right. And tonight, I got a chance to speak to Biggs is on the check-in. Happy word. Coach Biggs, what's up? We got my guy Bullhead in the building. Brad McClain will be on the check-in. Wendell Berriton will be on the check-in. Charlie will be on the check-in. Kelvin Bigelow will be on the check-in. So you got a lot of your former guys watching. Oh, my niece just popped up in the building. Love you, baby girl. Well, I'm going to jump right into this, Coach, because I have a lot of questions I want to ask you. But the first one is, who introduced you to the game?
Glenn, I have an older brother. His first name is Ed, and he's just under 7 years older than me. And he was somebody I looked up to as a fifth grader. He's a high school senior, and he loved the game of basketball. He was a very, very good player himself. I'm from a little town called Brockway, which it's hard to describe where it's at. It's about an hour west of Penn State. It's like an hour from the Ohio line, right on Interstate 80. People ask me, is it near Pittsburgh? No, it's 2 hours from Pittsburgh. People ask me, is it close to Erie, Pennsylvania? It's 2 hours from Erie. So we're kind of out in the middle of nowhere, so to speak. And players that come through there have not had a whole lot of opportunity to get seen, to get noticed whatsoever. My brother became the very first person at Brockway Area High School to make an all-state team. I'm not talking about honorable mention. I'm talking about making one of the teams. Back then, the Associated Press had their own all-state team, and UPI, United Press International, had their own all-state team. Ed made third team with the UPI all-state. And, just being around him, growing up, my father had passed away at a young age. He died at age 44 back in 1960.
Wow.
So I was looking up to Ed for a long time, and we've been very close. He was a guy that I looked up to from a basketball standpoint. He got me involved in playing basketball, taught me an awful lot about the game as a young player, and I basically just wanted to follow in his footsteps. And that was my introduction to basketball, was through my older brother. And we're very close today. We talk every Wednesday and every Sunday. Matter of fact, just before we came on the air, my phone rang and it was him. And I said, Ed, I can't talk to you now. I can talk to you a little bit later on. So anyway, it was my brother Ed that introduced me to the game.
Salute to your brother Ed for everything he's done for you. Man, Coach, you must have been one hell of a ball player because you played at Syracuse. And was a point guard. And you never talked about it. This is something that you never talked about.
Well, it's ancient history right now, Glenn. You know that verbatim. So I was at Syracuse. I went as a freshman in 1967. That's when freshmen still had to play freshman basketball, and then on the team from 1968 through 71. And my senior year. Let me go back up to 1964, 1965. Syracuse had some really good teams. Dave Bing and Jim Boeheim were on that team, and they did 2 NCAA tournaments in a row. And then Syracuse kind of fell in hard times very quickly. And the coach that I went to play for at Syracuse, his name was Fred Lewis. He got fired at the end of my freshman year. He got fired, and the freshman coach that I was playing for was named Roy Danforth, who you've already mentioned. And Roy became the head coach at Syracuse. My sophomore year, we played 10 of our first 11 games on the road. I think we were like 9-16. My junior year, we were 500, 13-13. And my senior year, we were 19-6 on the regular season, and we got invited to the NIT. And the NIT back then was 16 teams. All the games were in Madison Square Garden, and the NCAA tournament only had 32 teams. So if you were one of the 48 teams in America that got invited to the postseason play, you had to be a pretty good team. And we had a pretty good team. And that 19, we lost to Michigan in the very first round of the NIT. That game was one of the few games that was on national TV. This was the CBS game of the week. They had back then, they just had one college game on during the weekend, and we got the time slot for that game. And so with that 19-7 record, Syracuse has been to either the NCAA or NIT every year up until 2 years ago. And there was two exceptions along the way. Twice, Syracuse was put on probation, and they were not allowed to play in the NCAA tournament. The school would not allow them to keep on going. So from 1971 till literally about 2 years ago, they'd had winning seasons all along the way. And that's something, look back on it, me and some of my old teammates, we still talk about, how we kind of started the tradition of winning at Syracuse. And from that point on, the very next year, they got back to the NIT, won a couple games in the NIT, and then the next 4 years, Syracuse was involved in the NCAA tournament. So, but my senior year, I think, was the year that kind of got them going and got them heading in the right direction from a historic standpoint.
You earned your first tech of the night, Coach. Listen, y'all hear this, right? From one ball player to another, he was saying in the beginning, that stuff was ancient history, but him and his guys still talk to this day about their legacy that they left behind at Syracuse. So that's awesome. Speaking of ball players, we have Brad McClain on the check, and he wants to say hi to you, Coach. And happy Thanksgiving.
Brad, how are you doing, buddy?
Wow, this is awesome. It said fun coach babysat my brother-in-law in the 70s. True story. Wow. I didn't know that. No, it's just what's up? It says William McClain. Now I wonder if this is Brad. Because I only know one McClain, so but we're gonna move on from there. But Coach, that's amazing. You guys had a winning tradition and set that precedence for Syracuse early on.
Yeah, it was looking back on it.
Your thumb is in the, there you go. Your thumb was in the camera.
Okay, sorry. Looking back on it, you never really thought about it, being on a team that was going to start that kind of tradition. But obviously they went to my senior year, goes to the NIT, the next year NIT, then 4 years, next 4 years under Roy Danforth, got to the NCAA tournament. 1975, Syracuse, they've been to 6 Final Fours over the years. Obviously, the national championship in 2003. But in 1975, it was their first trip to the Final Four. And I'm a 25-year-old assistant coach sitting on that bench, and we're playing in San Diego. And after the very first round of games, after both teams played their semifinal games, UCLA legend John Wooden announced his retirement after the Monday night game. And just being a part of that history is just something I when I sit back and try to think about nostalgia, that's definitely part of it as well. So,
man, that's NCAA history right there, man. Such a rich tradition. When did you realize you wanted to become a coach full time and make it a career? When did that kick in?
Again, I'm referring back to my brother. My brother, after he went to Clarion State College, he was a darn good Division II college player at the time, and tore up his knee towards the end of his junior year, and that was the end of his career. But he was involved in education, and actually came back to my high school to start teaching. He was a special education teacher, and he was an assistant coach. And I saw that he was looking to move from high school, from assistant's job to a head job, from a head job to college. That's something always that he desired to. And he told me that I should try to apply to schools all across the country as a senior. So back then, a lot of people won't even know what this is, but I sat down with a typewriter, and in my senior year, and I typed out to every school. I had the director of college athletics, and I typed probably 7 or 8 letters a night, and sent them in the mail, and just trying to apply, just trying to catch on at any school, Division I, II, or III, any position whatsoever. And then all college kids like to get mail. Back in those days, they loved to get mail.
Yes.
And I was getting 5 and 6 rejections a day in my mailbox at school. So the only school that returned anything positively was Drew University. And they wanted me to come down and interview for the assistant coaching job. They had one position open, and it was a very part-time job. My degree was in education as well. And my major was actually elementary education and social studies. So as soon as I knew that they wanted me to come down for an interview, I went right over to our placement center to see if they had any openings in the Madison, New Jersey area. And certainly they had one right next door in Chatham. I applied for that job, came down, interviewed for both jobs on the same trip, one in the morning, the other in the afternoon. And within a couple of days, I was invited to become a teacher in the Chatham Borough school system and an assistant coach at Drew University. So that was my start on the college level, and it just so happened that it came after my first year out of college. So I've been in college coaching for 44 years, and it's amazing where basketball has taken me.
Man, and the lesson of that for all my young people that's watching is you got to fail before you succeed, right? So if you fail, try again. You fail, try again. You stumble, you fall, you get up, you dust yourself off, you try again, and something positive will happen. And it turned out that coach landed a career that lasted 44 years. So salute to that, coach.
Appreciate that, Glenn. It was really been an interesting ride along the way. Roy Danforth was my college coach. I was an assistant to him for 4 years at Syracuse. And then this is kind of a crazy story. Roy had left town to go out to interview for a couple lateral head coaching jobs. He at one point was really looking to be the athletic director at Syracuse. He got bypassed for that job. He wanted to be the head coach and as well as the athletic director. Got bypassed for the AD's job, and was just basically looking to make a lateral move on his own. And he was interviewing. He went to interview at University of Oklahoma for the head job, and from there he left to go to New Orleans to interview for Tulane University for the head coaching job. He calls me up. This was April 1st, 1976. Calls me up. Roy was coming back through the Chicago airport, and he asked me, he says, Tommy, he said, will you pick me up at the airport when I get in? So I said, Coach, I sure will. And I said, how'd the interviews go? He said, well, I've accepted the head coaching job at Tulane University, and I want to invite you along as my top assistant. He said, I'm going to be pushing Boeheim for the head coaching job here that I'm leaving behind. And I'm not sure if he'd want to come, but I'm sure he's going to want to be the head coach here at Syracuse, and I'm certainly going to push him for that. So I said, Coach, that's great. I said, you're arriving at the airport about 7:15 at night. I said, how much time do I have to decide to make that decision to come with you? He said, I'd like an answer when you pick me up. So this was 4:00 in the afternoon, the phone call, and I picked him up at 7:15. And I told him when I picked him up, says, Coach, I'm going with you to Tulane. Now, I had never been anywhere near New Orleans. Further south I'd really been was Atlanta.
Right.
And, so I had no idea what we were getting into at all. And but Jim wanted the head coaching job at Syracuse, and I knew that it probably would take him about a week before they would sort that out. And Jim had interviewed for the Division III job at the University of Rochester. So Jim had a head coaching job in his hip pocket. It's just with Rochester, it's just a matter of whether he's going to stay on and get the head coaching job at Syracuse, which obviously he did. He recruits Roosevelt Bowie and Louis Orr. We had been recruiting Roosevelt Bowie the entire year. He was our number one prospect the entire season. And Jim basically sold him on closing the deal with Syracuse. And the rest is history. What Boeheim has accomplished at Syracuse, obviously, along the way. We took the Tulane job, and that was a tough job. They just got involved in a brand new conference. At the time, it was called the Metro 7. And schools, some of the schools that were in it were Louisville, Florida State, University of Cincinnati, Virginia Tech, Southern Mississippi. It was a power pack conference, and we were to play all our home games in the Superdome. And if you get 10,000 people to a college basketball game in the Superdome, it's like you're in an empty theater, because Superdome seats about 75,000.
There you go. Yeah.
So anyway, we ended up playing a couple of years in the Superdome, and it took a while for us to get that program going in high gear. And Roy in 1981 chose to leave coaching. He had actually had a position that had been offered to him at Tulane as being in charge of what's called the Green Wave Club, which is their primary fundraising position. And Roy took that, and it was kind of a crazy time in my life personally, because I had just brought my wife and newborn son, home from the hospital. Brad had just been born, and they hired a new coach by the name of Ned Fowler. And I didn't know Ned Fowler from Adam. And he came on board, and he said, Tom, I want to work with you for about 2 weeks, and I'll make a decision on whether I'm going to keep you on or not. Well, I worked very hard for 2 weeks, and he chose to keep me on. And we went to the NIT in his first year and second year as well. And then this job opened at Fairleigh Dickinson. Now, I didn't know the first thing about Fairleigh Dickinson. I knew of a coach they had there by the name of Al Wababo, who was this defensive guru way back in the day. And I'm saying this is 1983, back in the day for me then. So I applied for this job. They invited me up for an interview. Told me I was one of 9 people to come in for the first round of interviews. They said they'd let me know within about a week's time whether they were going to have me back for a second round of interviews. So they brought me back up for the second round, and the athletic director, a gentleman by the name of Stan Wright, told me, he says, Tom, we're going to interview on Wednesday afternoon, and if we select you, we're going to have you meet with the provost on Thursday morning to talk about contract, and then Saturday afternoon we're going to have a press conference. So I was anxious to come up for that second round of interviews, and they asked me to stay around, and they told me on Thursday that I would be coming to the next head coach at Fairleigh Dickinson, and my press conference was going to be Saturday afternoon. So I went to the conference. That was my first time really of touring around the school that morning for sure. And they told me they were going to build a new facility. They were going to break ground for it in about 6 months. Well, the 6 months turned into 4 years, and 3 years before they started building the Rothman Center. But they finally got it built, and finally in 1988, the 87-88 season, we opened up the Rothman Center. And
we definitely gonna get there. We gonna get there, because you kind of breezing through, right? You're breezing through real fast. The first thing I want to ask is, since you played at Syracuse, you coached at Syracuse, why we never play Syracuse?
I really, every year they ask me to bring in so much money for the department. All low to mid majors, they go play high majors, especially early in the season. And they go and take a beating and bring home a nice check is normally how it works out. You know, and occasionally you'll have an upset along the way. We had beaten Providence one year when I'm coaching early on at Fairleigh Dickinson. We beat Seton Hall a few years after that, and but it's something I'd never really even thought about going back to play them. In all honesty, Boeheim and I were friends. We actually the 4 years I was an assistant coach there, Jim and I were roommates. We had a house we had 4-bedroom house, and I had a fraternity brother and assistant trainer. We all shared this house. It was actually a brand new house, and the house back in that day was probably on the high end from a cost standpoint, but we probably had about $300 in old furniture throughout the house. So it was an interesting kind of lifestyle for a few years. But Boeheim and I were very good friends back then, and still keep in touch. And it's just something that I had never really thought about too much about going back and playing them.
Yeah. You kind of said the same thing when we was in school, because I remember asking you that question when I was at Fairleigh Dickinson. Another question is, how was the transition from playing at the Tulane arena, right?
Yeah.
That Superdome, to that small high school gym in Rutherford, New Jersey?
Well, they said the capacity of the old Rutherford gym was 1,000 people, and I think that's with 500 women being pregnant at the time, and counting those extra 500 that way. But nevertheless, now it was a unique experience.
Yo, let me tell y'all, I couldn't believe when we used to go back and, go to the Rutherford campus and play pickup sometime. I couldn't believe the size of the gym, because, I came in that 1987, 88 year when the Rothman Center was being built. So that was one of the things that kind of sold me on coming to the school, of course, and Biggs, Damari Riddick being there as well, coming from Lincoln High School. I just thought it was a great opportunity to open up that building. And now, since we on that subject, right? You're talking about your first recruiting class. Who was in that first recruiting class at FDU?
We had a great recruiting class that year. Damari Riddick, commonly referred to as Biggs, Jamie Latney, both still in the top 10 of scoring, top 10 of rebounding at Fairleigh Dickinson. Just great players. We had a transfer by the name of Kevin Solney, who had come with me from Tulane. We actually had a really good recruiting year. Kelvin Bigelow was an outstanding junior college player that we had looked into, and it was a high scoring guard, and he was a great addition to our program. So just an outstanding recruiting year, capped off by Bigelow, Latney, and Riddick, and everything kind of fell in place after that for us.
That's right. And you didn't coach Marcus Gaithers, right? You wasn't there while he was there.
I coached Marcus his senior year. As a junior, Marcus averaged about 22 points a game, and I came in playing a completely different style than the previous coach, Don Feely. They were playing basically run and gun kind of offense. Marcus Gaither, Greg Foster, and Mike Payne were 3 seasoned senior players, and all 3 of those players earned their way into the FDU Hall of Fame over the years. Marcus came in first, Greg came in a few years after that, and Mike came in a few years after that. So I had 3 really good players to open my career with, and then they graduated, and people thought we were not going to be that good the very next year. But with the key additions of Latney and Riddick and Bigelow, we formed a nucleus that was very, very successful. And my second year, the first year with those three Hall of Fame players, we were 17-12, and had a lot of close games that we should have won a few more than 17, but nevertheless, we ended up 17-12. And then the following year, with Kelvin and Jamie and Damari, was just a great year. We won the conference tournament on Loyola, Maryland's home court. It's an overtime game, and we were pitted against the University of Michigan in our very first round, and that in itself was a very unique experience for Fairleigh Dickinson because they'd never had been in any kind of a national tournament before.
That was 1985, correct? That was 1985.
1985.
Yeah. Wow. I want to say rest in peace to Marcus Gaithers. He meant a lot to people out in Far Rockaway, especially a lot of the guys who played Pro-Am in New York City. So rest in peace, Marcus Gaithers, for sure.
He was a great person, number one, and a great player at Fairleigh Dickinson, and got drafted by the Utah Jazz. Unfortunately for him, the same year that John Stockton got drafted by the Utah Jazz as well.
Wow. It's crazy because salute to Brad McLean, whose real name is William. I never knew that, Brad. All the years we played and we was roomies on the road. Never knew your first name was William, Brad. Ronald McCann said, I remember Chris Heinrich, the assistant coach, and Tiny. Whatever happened to Torstein? Torstein became what was he? He became a dentist or a doctor or something, a chiropractor or something like that.
He's the tallest chiropractor in Phoenix, Arizona.
Yes. And in the business, in the whole business.
Yes.
Of chiropractic. Salute to Torstein.
He had 7'2" with these unbelievably large hands. I cannot imagine somebody going to Phoenix and all of a sudden have like a stiff neck that they want to go get a chiropractor. And you walk into the office, and yes, Dr. Stein can see you in about 15 minutes. And in about 12 minutes, he walks out and says, yes, you can come on in right now. And you see a 7'2" guy with these unbelievably huge hands. And this is the guy that's going to help fix my stiff neck. So I don't know.
Oh, man, he was one of the smartest individuals I've ever met, and also one of the funniest individuals. You wouldn't think so, but man, his sense of humor was off the chart. Salute to Torstein.
Yeah, I spoke to him about 3 years ago. We kind of caught up with each other and had a real nice chat. And he's very successful at what he's doing in Phoenix, Arizona. So, and loves living there. So, yeah,
definitely. Big Ron, what up? He said I was on the Rutherford campus. I know that's where I think we met at, for sure. That's awesome. Yeah, Coach. So, you get that first NCAA bid, right? You play against Michigan. You talked about recruiting Jamie Latney, Damari Riddick, Kelvin Bigelow, right? To make sure that you have a good recruiting class. Now, you open up the next season with all those guys returning, right?
Yes.
And was this that 86, 87 year?
Yes.
How was that year for you guys? Because that's the year before we arrived. How was that year for you guys and coming off that NCAA bid?
You're really testing my mind here, Glenn. So in terms of trying to remember back the record and everything like that, but just coming off that Michigan game, that game really put FDU on the map, and it gotten so much publicity because it's a first round game. It was the first time that the NCAA had advanced from 53 teams to 64 teams. And we were ranked as the number 63 team in America in the NCAA that year. Lehigh had a sub 500 record, but they won their league tournament and they were ranked number 64, and just a really unique experience playing that tournament. Just that really put us on the map, and I'm taking you back to that time. We ended up playing Michigan in Dayton, Ohio, and it was before the shot clock was put in. We kind of slowed things down for them. We had a small, pretty quick team, and Jamie Latney was a great athlete. DeMar Riddick was a force on the perimeter as well as a post-up player, and we were up 6 at halftime, 26 to 20, and with 10 minutes to go in the game, with 8 minutes to go in the game, we were up 10, and from the 8-minute mark to the 4-minute mark, I had 4 starters foul out, and that basically did us in. So they made up that 10-point lead became nothing, and within a short period of time after losing all those players to fouling out. And I still have the stat sheet from that game, and just seeing when they fouled out, the time of the game when they fouled out, and the fact that you lost 4 players. We came within about 2 inches of trying to steal the ball when we were down 2. And if had we completed that steal and gone in for the layup, it would have sent the game in overtime. But we could have never won the game in overtime because we were running out of talented players, to say the very least. But nevertheless, that put us on the map. And then that next year that you're talking about right now, these guys came back, and they liked the experience of playing. The league became an awful lot better in a short period of time. Marist had some really big, talented players.
Yes.
Led Rick Smits. They had another 6'10", 6'11" guy by the name of Rudy Bugarel. They had a couple 6'7" guys, and they had a great shooter on the wing. And they were a real force in our league. And if we find out that that's the 86, that's the 85, 86 season. 2 years later, Marist gets put on probation for recruiting those kids. There were violations as to how they were recruited, and the amount of award aid that they got, et cetera, everything was in question, and they got put on probation for a couple of years. And looking back on it, we go to the NCAA tournament, and Damari and Jamie's and Calvin's early part of their career, in a couple of them's freshman year, and we lose out the very next 2 years, and then in the 87-88 season, the year that we opened the Rothman Center, we win the tournament again. And but
we're going to get there. Hold on, we're going to get there. Definitely going to get there. Number one, I watched that game, that Michigan game, and we all know you guys got robbed. They would not allow you guys to advance. They was calling fouls like crazy. I remember watching that game because before I knew I was going to Fairleigh Dickinson, I was rooting for Biggs. He went to Lincoln High School, and we were all cheering and couldn't believe the amount of calls that was made. Now, we all know in our conference, it's very hard to repeat, right?
Yes.
It's very hard to repeat as champions and get to the NCAA. So, it's kind of that, you go through your rough patches and then you reboot and then you come back and you try it all over again till you get it right. That 1988 year was a special year because 87-88 year because I was part of that recruiting class. Desi Wilson, myself, and I think it was DeJuan Green. And wasn't he the number 1 recruit up to that point? Because he was the number 2 player from Pennsylvania behind Billy Owens, your home state.
Yeah, DeJuan came in with some great credentials for sure.
Right. So we were all declared, well, they were declared Prop 48. I, for some reason, was declared later on. with some problems that was happening with my grades. I don't know, and I don't remember the exact thing. I remember passing my ACT, but when I took the team picture, it was like a week later. You guys put me in the office and said that the NCAA declared me ineligible for that year, which was very disappointing because I was going to leave. I was transferring to a junior college, but my moms wouldn't allow it. So salute to my moms for not allowing me to transfer because I had some good times at FDU. But nevertheless, we went into that year, and I missed out on that NCAA run because that was such an incredible run because you guys had a great team. We had a great team, and we got to the NCAA tournament, and I'll let you take it from here.
Well, that NCAA game was we played Purdue, and they had an outstanding team. Gene Cady was their coach, still one of the all-time best coaches in America.
Yeah,
and he ended up having 3 players that all were drafted in the early second round. It was like, bang, and then two steps later, another Purdue player. Then about 3 steps later, the last Purdue player. So they had a really good team, and we played them at Notre Dame, and we got into foul trouble. Jamie got into foul trouble very early in the game, and ended up only playing, I think it was 2 minutes in the first half, and then foul trouble just took care of us. They ended up defeating us by about 15 points, and it wasn't that close of a game throughout, just because of them just kind of controlling the game from start to finish. But nevertheless, it was a great experience to go back to the NCAA tournament, and for guys like Damari and Jamie and Kelvin, who had been part of an NCAA team in '85, to go back again in '88 was just great, absolutely just great. And obviously that '88 team, had we had you, Glenn, and had we had Desi Wilson and DeJuan Green, it would have been I can't imagine the level of talent that we would have had that particular year with you guys joining in with this veteran team that was just so good. So
yeah.
The good Lord knows how good we would have been at that point.
Most definitely. Now, after that, it took you guys 10 more years to get back, but we'll get to that point, right? What I want to go through with some things that we discussed early on, and the great thing about my years was getting to play with Charlie Roberts, Brad McClain, Wendell Berriton, and Mel Hawkins, and Desi Wilson, to name a few of the guys that I played against. Desi Wilson was such an amazing athlete, 2-sport player, baseball and basketball. And we talked about a few years ago about when you kind of just told me, you asked me the question, do you feel like I held you back? And we had a very honest conversation, because up to that point, I had some just some very dark times about my feelings playing college basketball. And I think me as a grown man, the older I got, the more I understood you as a coach, me as a player during that time, and the sacrifices that were made. Of course, I got hurt coming back my sophomore year, so that put me behind the 8 ball a little bit after having a very hot beginning to my sophomore year, and then getting hurt, and that kind of put me back on things. But I'm glad that we were able to have that talk when we sat down and had a talk at the barbecue, myself, you, Charlie, and Bigelow, how much it meant to me to get past that point, because I feel like if you hold on something too long, you're the one that got to deal with it, and it'll just tear you down. But having that conversation with you kind of cleared a lot of things up for me, and I want to say thank you for having that conversation with me. Appreciate that.
Well, my only problem with that conversation, it was about 15, 20 years too late. So nevertheless, I'm glad we sat down and had that conversation. And if there was any air that was not totally covered, I think we covered everything on that conversation. But nevertheless, we got back on the same wavelength very, very, very quickly.
Yes, for sure. Now, I want to go back, because these are some of the stories that I share with my players when I coached before I start my podcast and had to put the coaching behind. But I remember one day, it was our sophomore years, Desi, Dewan, and I's sophomore year, and I think Brad was a freshman, and we were in 15 games where we either lost or won by 3 points. And coach, in practice, you were just giving us a ripping, and each player got their own fair share of the Tom Green's whiplashing during that time. But I remember that day very vividly, because when you talked about having that conversation 15 years earlier, 25 years ago, I spoke up for the team, got kicked out of practice. The team followed me to the locker room, and the next day you called me in your office, and I thought you was going to take my scholarship away. And you sat me down and you told me, you said you were doing that to see if one of us would step up to the plate, because at that time we had a young team and we were looking for some leadership. And I spoke up, and you made me co-captain, I think, with Charlie. It was Charlie's senior year. And I'll never forget that day, because I always tell my kids, sometimes a coach is going to test you to see how far or what you're willing to do. And it's not to be disrespectful. It's just to see how much of a ball player or how much of a leader you can be. So those are another thing. And you became the second coach to bring that leadership qualities out of me. So I want to say thank you again for that. For sure. Brad said he remembers it like it was yesterday. That's true. Yeah, so that was amazing. That just showed you the quality of the coach that you were at the time. So I definitely appreciate that. Another experience that I had with you was you telling me about the business of college sports. Now, you mentioned it earlier with Syracuse, right? If we played Syracuse, we would get the school would get a check, and the bigger school would get a win. And I remember coming into your office, and coach, you was happy. You was on cloud nine. And I was like, coach, you seem like you're in a good mood. What's going on? You said, well, Glenn, we just got confirmation that we will be playing Wake Forest, and we got an $80,000 check. And I was like, up to that point, I had no clue how college basketball worked. You told me to sit down, and you walked through the process of college, the business of college athletics. I'll never forget that, because they gave us an $80,000 check. You explained to us that covers our, some go to the school, but also it goes for our traveling. And he said, this is the reason why y'all stay in these nice hotels, and we able to give you guys a certain amount of per diem because of that check. And it just blew my mind. He said, because they really think they're going to beat us, but we're going to go down there and we're going to whip their ass. And that just got me psyched. He said, but also, Glenn, remember this. There are no upsets in pro sports. There are only upsets in college athletics, because if a bigger school gives you money and they lose, they're going to be upset. And my mind was blown. Right? So you kind of schooled me to that aspect. And ever since, I started this show, I would bring that up to different players, no matter if they played at Syracuse, St. John's, Georgia Tech with Kenny Anderson, and DePaul with Ross Strickland, I would bring those questions up. And a lot of these guys didn't know that their schools were paying smaller schools for wins. So thank you for that information.
It's business, Glenn. That's the business side of coaching. I was told every year a certain dollar amount to bring in, and my first year of scheduling with Damari and Jamie and Kelvin, I was told to bring in a certain amount of money, and it goes back to the athletic department, so it helps fund all the different sports. It didn't come back into the basketball budget. It came back to the athletic department. It's up to the AD to spend it however he felt was best. So that's beyond my pay grade when we bring the check back and just give him the AD and he gets it to the business manager. They get it to the bank and then it's all decided down the road what they do with that money. So that's the business side of it. It's still going on. It's still going on.
Oh yes, for sure.
Amount of money that these schools have budgeted for home games is astonishing. I mean, this day and age, you're talking about some of these Big Ten schools, ACC schools. They may have a budget of $600,000 or $700,000 to bring in the low to mid majors in November and December. Take a win and then send them home with a $100,000 check. I mean, it's just absolutely crazy. Just the money part of that aspect of it. So you see some of these teams that some of these low level teams that are just going on the road and they're gone like the whole month of December leading up to it. So you feel bad for the coach that's in that situation, but you understand why he is in that situation. And it's all about the athletic department that he's trying to help support.
Yeah, most definitely. But again, thank you for schooling me to that side of basketball. It just made things a lot better for me understanding the business of basketball, especially college basketball. Now, let's move on to 1998 and tell me about what you have learned as a coach from your previous years that made this year a lot smoother.
Quick question, Glenn. Do you want me to move to the computer from a technical standpoint?
You can if they go to the email and bring it up, and once you bring it up, we can do that. Just tell them to tell your wife or tell Brad to bring it up, and then I could switch you over to make sure that everything is coming through correctly.
Okay. All right.
All right, so we can I'll wait for you to go. I'm gonna remove you out off the screen, and then you can go to sit at the computer, see if everything is okay.
You want it there, you want it here?
All right.
Yeah, it's fine. Absolutely.
All right. Man, do y'all understand? Like this is coming full circle for me. Just as an adult, knowing what I went through as a young man at Fairleigh Dickinson, you got to understand. I went there planning to play 4 years of college basketball, get ruled ineligible maybe 2 weeks or 3 weeks before the season, maybe 2 weeks before the season start. Come back my sophomore year, I'm killing. First game I started, I have 25 points, absolutely on a tear. And then blow my knee out in the middle of the season. So really only played 2.5 years of college basketball. If I would have known what I've known now, after I've graduated, I could have transferred to a Division II school and played, right? But that information I wasn't privy to that information back then. Hindsight is 20/20, as they always say. But I don't regret anything because it made me to the man I am today, and all the friends that I met, all the fun that I had at Fairleigh Dickinson, I wouldn't trade it for the world. And it allowed me to graduate, get my degree, come home, take care of my responsibilities at home, There you go. Look at that.
Glenn, we're working here, aren't we?
Oh man, look at that. Salute to Brad and Mrs. Green for making everything possible. Look at that. You got the court behind you and everything. Whoa.
We're good. We're good for sure, Glenn. Yeah, absolutely.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, so I was just reflecting on just this being a full circle moment for my basketball career. Last week I had my prep school coach on, Paul Pellicani, and we talked about a lot of great things that I was able to accomplish at MCI. I had my high school coach at Lincoln on season 1, and now having you on in season 5. This makes life so beautiful right now. So appreciate you.
You're covering your whole lifestyle right there, aren't we?
Yeah. So now I want to move on to 1998, and I wanted to know what were some of the things that you learned as a coach from your previous years. Now you're making another NCAA run.
Well, it's just continued to recruit quality players like yourself, good people that wanted to work hard, and we had several of them enrolled in the program. Elijah Allen, Rashawn Turner come to mind, and we had brought in a couple of junior college players that we needed some wing players, big guards or athletic guards, and we brought in Mike Bozeman and Richard Moore. Were very, very athletic players. Bozeman was a great shooter, and Richard Moore was just an all-around incredible athlete for a 6'2", 6'3" wing player for us. And it just kind of all came together. That year, the 1998 season, people have asked me.
That was the 88 year, right?
Okay.
Right. Richard Moore was on that team. Elijah Allen and them was on the 1998 team.
Yes.
Which I thought was spectacular, because what I was seeing from a guard standpoint, I was like, oh man, coaches let the guards play. Like, I was on cloud 9 seeing that transition, us being an inside out team to us spreading it out in the guards, right?
Right. Yes. When you played, we had that dominating player in Desi Wilson inside. I mean,
right.
Desi, he averaged like 22 points a game for 3 years consecutively, and he shot like 58% from the floor. So you had to be a fool to have somebody of that talent and not want to get him the ball as often as you could. And that's one of the things that you and I discussed about. I always kind of felt that maybe you thought that I held you back, and I probably did from that standpoint, because it just different style of play that you were accustomed to. And quite frankly, I'd always played like a 2-post situation since I came to FDU, but nevertheless, when you have a player like Desi, you're definitely going to try to get him the ball as much as possible. So, and quite frankly, when I was looking at stats of those teams from back then, I look at your second year on the team, and I saw the fall off, and I had totally forgotten about the injury that you had until just literally just a couple of minutes ago when you brought that up. So, because your stats as a sophomore, you're averaging like 11 points a game and shooting like 47, 48% from the floor overall, and like 46% from the three. And then your stats kind of trailed off in your junior year, but that was the year that your playing time was somewhat limited because of the injury. And now I'm just, it kind of smacked me in the side of the head that remembering that right now. And then your senior year, you went right back to getting around 11 points a game for us. And again, that was with the coach just dominating the team offensively by saying, we got to get the ball inside, So we had a play. I don't know why we called that. We called it 2-7. We were in a 2-1-2 set and just kept moving the ball around the perimeter until somebody could bounce it in. And if that didn't work, then we ended up trying to penetrate and pitch for a wide open three. So, but nevertheless, yes.
Yeah, again, Wendell and I we talk a lot, and of course now Brad, we knew that at some point, because the players would, like Joe Anderson from St. Francis, PA, right? That was like my counterpart, and who I would go at, and he would just say, "Man, we know who y'all gonna give the ball to. I'm so glad that you make your coaches make my job a lot easier because there's nothing I could do with you." But of course, we look at that now, and if I think things are a little bit different, we beat everyone and we repeat and go back to the NCAAs during my year. But we got an NIT bid, and that worked because our senior year we had a very, very, very good record. Just came up short in the championship.
Had a really good team. We came up
did.
Short in our playoff game with St. Francis of PA, but Mike Izzolino, who went to play several years with the Dallas Mavericks, I think he played about 3 years with them. That he ended up his playing career playing for the top teams in Italy. And,
that's right.
He was a transfer from Penn State, but when he got to St. Francis, he was not all about the jump shot going in the basket. So he was an incredible scorer for them.
Oh,
and you
most definitely.
Joe Anderson, and they had a bunch of athletes around them. So
yeah,
that was a really good team.
So the next time you guys get back to the championship is the final time, and your tenure is in 2005, correct?
Yes. That 98 team, I started to mention before, but probably my very best team, the 98 team, because our starting five and our second five every day in practice from a scrimmage standpoint. I've said this to many people. The 98 team was my easiest year of coaching because of the talent level that we had. I mean, we had two point guards, Elijah Allen as a starter, Tadaro Faison as a backup, and either one could have been a starting guard. And you go right down through everybody on the team, from a 2-guard standpoint, to 3-guard standpoint, to 4 or 5 men. Our second team was every bit as good as our first team, and we were deep, and I could go to the bench very, very often, very easily. And the biggest problem I had was probably keeping everybody happy, because everybody wanted to start and get their minutes. But it was a fun year because we were so good, and that ended the 98 team, and then you just brought us along to the 2005 team, and that was another special year for us as well. It was the first of 2 back-to-back 20-win seasons that we had in 05 and then again in 06. And that was a very special team with Chad Timberlake and Gordon Klaber, and Andre Harris was an incredible player for us. In his senior year of the 06-07 season, he was a leading scorer in the Northeast Conference. And the big guy that we had on that team, Andrea Crucerial, who ended up leaving after his junior year to go back to Italy and play professionally. And I'll never forget a conversation I had with Andrea in my office, and him saying, "Coach, I hate to really even talk about this, but I've got this opportunity to play back in Italy." And the first number he said was 200 in 1998. That's now as well as a lot of money then, but it wasn't NBA money. But nevertheless, I said, "Andre, you've got to do what's best for you and what's best for your family." And his dad had just had a health issue that limited him from working, that sort of thing. So he wanted to go back and help his family out. So had he stayed one more year, I think we would have been a dominating team in 05 and 06 and 07. But nevertheless, he just stayed with us through his junior year. He's a guy that in high school had nothing going for him. He was 6'10" and a little bit slow and didn't really have too many moves to the basket and wasn't much of a shot blocker. And within a 2-year time period, from a senior high school to a sophomore year in college, he just really, really developed and just got better. And as a junior, he was terrific, and just part of that great 2005 team, along with Gordon Klaber, Chad Timberlake, Damian Trent, just had a good bunch of kids, just a good bunch of kids. No knuckleheads on the team. All came to work every day, and it was just a fun team to coach again. So when you have good kids that want to win and want to work hard for you, that want to listen to the coach, it doesn't cause the off the court problems of not going to class or just being a bad student overall, or not being a great person or a great teammate. And I think that's one of the things in this day and age that coaches are really striving for, is to develop people into good teammates. And I think it's a really important aspect of coaching in the 2023 era that we're in right now.
No, I totally agree. I've had a chance on being on some championship teams and knew that was one of the ingredients when everyone got along. And I just know just during my era of coming up that we had so many different pockets and groups of players, and it wasn't a united front. So looking back, I don't point the finger at any coaches. You just got to look at yourself in the mirror and say, what could you have done to make things better? So definitely that always worked, being a good kid, non-problematic, and also being a great teammate. That's the ingredient for success right there. For sure.
Glenn, you played in some really good teams at Fairleigh Dickinson. You were a very good player, and you were a joy to coach. I mean, forget about anything else that we've talked about or talked about in the past, but you were just, from my standpoint, just a very special player, and your leadership skills on the court as well as off the court really shone through. So you were a special person to have on our team.
Thank you. I just honored my football coach, because I started out playing football. Coach Michael Bowman, this Coach Breeze, as we know him, he coached me in Little League football. And if you ever get a chance, you can watch that episode. For all my basketball heads that's listening right now, you can watch that episode and you can see where all of those leadership qualities started. And I went to Lincoln to play football. I didn't go to play basketball.
Wow.
I went to Lincoln to play football, made the JV football team, and then my friends went out for the varsity basketball team. They didn't have JV back in 1983. This when Damari was a senior. You had Carlton Silk Owens that was a senior, Spice Gilpatrick, Kenny Parker, who played at St. Peter's. They was filled with Division I players, and my coach picked 3 freshmen. And here I am being a part of another great freshman class. He only picked 3 freshmen and no one else. And I was a part of the 3 freshmen that he brought in. And by my junior year, we won his first city championship.
Wow.
So, yeah. And that's how basketball started for me. It started out as a football player.
What position did you play in football?
I played quarterback. Go figure.
Okay. All right.
Go figure. And I was 5'8". I was a 5'8" freshman in 9th grade. The summer going into my sophomore year, I grew to 6'4".
Wow.
And luckily for my coach Harstings, appreciate you, coach. He kept me at the guard position. He didn't throw me inside. And, the rest is history. So, yeah.
You had a great high school coach. You had a great high school coach. Bobby Hartstein is one of my all-time favorite people.
Yeah, definitely. We still talk to the day. I'll let him know you said hi. Definitely.
Yeah, please do.
Definitely. Now, do you ever get a chance to kind of reflect on your coaching career? Because I know you talked about you talking to your ex-college teammates on the impact that you guys had at Syracuse. Do you ever sit back and reflect on your legendary coaching career and all the things you were able to accomplish in your 44 years?
You're breaking up on me just a little.
All right. Hopefully we'll come back, because you see me here? You see me, Coach? Are you there? I'm here. I'm still here.
Okay. I did not hear your question. You kind of broke up on me.
Okay. You hear me now?
I hear you fine. Yes.
Okay. I was talking about, do you ever get a chance to reflect back on your legendary coaching career like you do when you talking to your former teammates at Syracuse about all the great things you accomplished there at Syracuse? Do you sit back and think about all the great things you accomplished in your 44 years of coaching?
You know, from a high school standpoint, I've got 9 other there were 10 seniors on my high school team. We're on a texting change. And in 2017 was the 50-year reunion of our high school team. We got together on a 3-day weekend. My friend of mine owns a lake, and a small lake, and built this beautiful cottage on it. And we went back, got together for a 3-day weekend, and that was 50 years. And we thought maybe we should do this again in 5 years. So 2022 came around, and we're on the texting chain, and we couldn't agree on a date. We just couldn't get everybody together on a date. So we postponed it to this past June. And the first weekend in June, we got together again. 10 of us got together. No, actually, nine of us got together on the first weekend in June. Did that again. I have this texting chain of like 7 players. 2 that were the other senior on my high school or my college team was a 6'11" guy named Bill Smith who played for Portland for like 3 years before he tore up his knee and ended his career. And I had a guy who was a combo guard and 2 other players. We got like 5 or 6 guys together on a texting chain. So we every once in a while we talk about trying to have a group phone call, so to speak, and that hasn't come to play, but we're still talking about it all the time. So one guy, 2 of them live in the West Coast, one lives in Denver, 2 of them live in Florida. So it's just trying to get together and keep in touch as best as we can. But you know, when I sit back, and I'm not the most nostalgic person regarding things that we accomplished in the past or teams that I've had in the past. But you know, every once in a while I'm going through my phone contacts, and I'll see somebody that I hadn't talked to in a while. I pick up the phone and give them a call, and you know, sometimes you think it's going to be a 5-minute phone call, and it ends up being an hour phone call. And we just go down memory road, you know, with that player that I'm calling. And you know, every once in a while I get a text or somebody has my email and they pass it along to me. Said, "Hey coach, are you free Wednesday night?" And I'll say yes. He said, "Well, I'm going to call you. Just, you know, I've got your number now. I'm going to call you at 8 o'clock." So that's those kind of contacts are really interesting because I hadn't talked to Rashawn Turner probably in about, I don't know, I talked to Rashawn probably about once a year, and there was maybe about a 2-year separation. 2-year separation. When I say every year, 2 years went by, and I said, "Rashawn," I called him up and says, just left him a message. "Where the hell have you been?" And he calls me back within an hour, and he's out refereeing a high school game, and we probably talked for 45, 50 minutes then. But just keeping in touch with players, it's you know, when you've had as many players as I've had, and most of my players, you know, whenever cell phones really became the in thing, I didn't have contacts for a lot of those guys back in the day, but now I still have. Kelvin Bigelow from that very first recruiting class has been instrumental in keeping in touch with his group of guys, and he's Mr. Personality along the way. I love Kelvin. Kelvin like a son for sure, and you just have different guys that have shown their leadership skills, you know, and you have as well. And every era seems to have their players. Mel Hawkins and I we've lost contact. And
I need the contact. Yes, I need that. If you find any way to get in contact with Mel Hawkins, Desi Wilson. I spoke to DeJuan Green over the years, but Desi Wilson and Mel Hawkins are definitely looking forward to speaking to. Charlie and I speak often, at least 2 times a week. You know, either it's on Instagram or once a month, do a phone call. So definitely.
Charlie, you know, I don't think I've even mentioned him on his podcast, but Charlie is one of my all-time favorite players. Yeah,
nice.
his recruiting was just. I got to tell you a 1 minute sidebar on Charlie. Charlie,
Okay.
I took my wife to a high school basketball one night. It happened to be Charlie's high school team, and I was looking at a 6'7" player that was on Charlie's team. Was my prime recruit, and during the game, my wife says, Tommy says, "Look at his point guard. Are you guys recruiting him?" And I said, Margot, I says, "Not at the present time. I came here to see his teammate, as you well know." Well, his teammate, 6'7" guy, he got 2 fouls like the first 3 minutes of the game. Didn't play at all the rest of the first half. Did not play that long in the second half. Got his third and fourth foul. And nevertheless, Charlie really stood out to me. So we started that night recruiting Charlie, and it was based on my wife telling me to recruit this guy. So even now, whenever I talk to Charlie, and Margot always, when Charlie's name comes up, she always jumps into the conversation and says, "That's my recruit."
That's right.
that's yeah. So, and Charlie, he went to Manhattan, and he calls me up in the spring, and I'd followed Charlie during his freshman year. He was having a really good year personally. The team wasn't.
Think we're freezing up again. Hold on for a sec, Coach. Think we're freezing up again.
Thinking about transferring, I said, Charlie, I said, I know you're a good student. It can't be academics. He says, no, Coach, I'm very happy to school academically. Satisfy my needs. He says, I just made the dean's list here. And I said, well, I saw you're starting as a freshman and you want to transfer. You think there's a better basketball situation at Fairleigh Dickinson? He said, why? You guys have been pretty good for a long time. He says, but I think I can help you guys. And, I knew darn well that he could help us for sure. I said, well, why do you want to transfer? He says, Coach, you guys, there's nothing going on in my campus. But, I said, well, my campus? He says, Coach, I've been on your campus probably 6 times this past year. Coming over, he says, you got a great social life on your campus.
Yes.
And that's kind of what got Charlie away from Manhattan, was the lack of a social life there. In the fact that we had some pretty good social lives going on at Fairleigh Dickinson. And he came and was an outstanding player for us, was a great leader, a tremendous point guard for us, tougher than nails. And, he's one of my all-time favorite players. No question about that. So I hadn't mentioned Charlie before, but thank goodness I did not forget him on his podcast, to say the least.
Definitely.
I'm probably going to hear from 4 or 5 players tomorrow that say, Coach, you didn't mention me. What's up with that?
Right. Especially we got my guy Brad McClain on. We got Wendell Berrichon on the check-in. We got Biggs on the check-in, who you mentioned earlier. Man, and go to think about it, right? Myself and Brad playing the same positions. We always room together. Great guy, great parents. Always have fun together. We had some great battles, but man, that's one of the guys I could say was definitely a great teammate, man. Definitely him, Wendell Berrichon, those guys was awesome. And Charlie, of course, became one of my best friends. Yeah.
Brad McClain was an incredible shooter. I don't know where he's been hiding now for the last several years. I haven't talked to Brad in a long time. I'm gonna give Brad. I'm gonna give you my email address right now. Brad, get a hold of me real quick and give me your phone number. Hoops basketball hoops TM at AOL.com. Hoops TM at AOL.com.
I'm quite sure he's listening to it. I'll send him. I'll send him the information because I have his number. Definitely will send him the information.
Fantastic. Appreciate it, Glenn.
No doubt. Yeah. We're just going to go over a few other things and then I'm going to get you out of here, Coach. Now, this past year, Fairleigh Dickinson got some redemption on Purdue, right? Who we lost to in 1988. I was so proud of those guys, after these guys accomplished something that we weren't able to do in the past is get past that first round. It was just such a tremendous feeling because my phone wouldn't stop ringing, honestly. What was your feeling during that time and seeing them make that run during the NCAAs last year?
Glenn, if you lived on either side of my house, you would have heard me hooping and hollering. Unbelievable. I was just flat out excited. And my neighbor on one side of the house is not really that big on college basketball, but he had to hear me yelling and screaming. And Margot came in a couple of times. She says, Tom, we have neighbors. And I said, yeah, I'm sure they can hear me as well. So I was just unbelievably impressed with the team this past year. I've been doing the webcast of the home games this is my 5th year of doing it. And last year, Tobin Anderson, he got the job. I think it was announced on a Thursday. He texts me on a Saturday. He says, Coach, we got to get together for lunch. And that Monday, I was going back in. I was going in to have. I had hip replacement that summer, that May, and I ended up calling him that Sunday. I said, Tobin, I really appreciate you reaching out to me. I said, but I'm going to be under the weather for about the next 6 weeks or so. So we made a date to go have lunch, and he brought me back into the fold. He wanted me to come to practices, wanted me to speak to his team, and get to know the guys. And the fact that I'm doing all the home games on the webcast for the Northeast Conference is was just a fun year to get to know Tobin and his staff, to get to know the players as well as I was able to. He has them all combined at the end of practice. Go say hello to a legend over there. Go say hello to Coach Sean Green. And he embarrassed me that way, but nevertheless, it just was really nice to be part of that team in a very small way, so to speak, but just to be around these kids. And just he brought in a bunch of new players, and they were all just great kids character wise. And as I found out as time went on, they all were really good students as well. And the fact that we only had Tobin Anderson for 10 months at Fairleigh, I mean, he's left an impact on the school that will never be forgotten. And
definitely,
alumni used to ask me, he said, Tom, how about that Michigan game? How about that game against Illinois? And now all they want to talk about is Purdue. And I totally get that. I totally understand that.
That's right.
And Tobin he'll be memorialized as the only coach that's ever won a game for Fairleigh in the NCAA tournament. So nevertheless, that was great. I mean, I should back up. Greg Horrendo won the first 4 game when he was here in 2019, but to win, to advance to the round of 68 per se, and then win a game just unbelievable. And I'm fortunate my neighbors are still talking to me because I definitely disturbed the peace that night.
Oh man, that was awesome. We all part of that FDU family, so I'm very proud. Even when I saw you guys winning and you doing what you was doing on a consistent basis, and then finally the world being able to see, and me having a platform that I had now, I was getting messages from all over the place from people I never met before who know that I went to Fairleigh Dickinson University. So it all comes full circle, just like tonight.
Glenn, feel free to pass my contact information on to some of those guys. Again, I would appreciate it very much.
Definitely. I will definitely do that. I will definitely do that, Coach. Yeah. So you and Kelvin, because you took Kelvin with you after you left FDU to City College, correct?
Right. I did. Just kind of interesting. My first year out of coaching, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't know. I was too young to retire, and my wife Margot, she owned a Century 21 franchise in Oradell, New Jersey. Owned it for like 20 years, and I told her, Margot, I'm going to be looking for a job in coaching, and over this next year. And I said I really don't want to have to move. But she said, Tom, I want to stay, and our business is starting to turn around and starting to go good for me, and everything, et cetera. And I totally got that. So basically, we decided. I said that if I can find a job in the metropolitan area, I'm going to take any coaching job I can get, whether it be head coach or an assistant coach or whatever. Obviously, having been a head coach for the last 26 years at FDU, I would really like to have been a head coach. And I saw City College had an opening, and I didn't know the first thing about City College from a basketball standpoint. I knew at one point, way back when, from a historical standpoint, that they had a championship team. I didn't know what the extent of the championship was, and with a little reaching into references and that sort of thing, found out they won a national championship as a Division I team back in 1950, and they'd won the NIT the same year, and they had the same opponent. Fairleigh University was who they defeated in the NIT championship, and then the NCAA championship. Again, Fairleigh University. So, and I read that they were playing at Madison Square Garden in front of like 17,000 people on a regular basis. Incredible what they had done way back then. And then 1951, there was this crazy story about players taking money, loan sharks. Just the scandal that came about that really tore up New York City basketball for several years. And City College dropped from Division I to Division III right around 1954, 55. And I didn't know this when I first took the job there as a head coach. I was just very grateful to have a head coaching position, but I didn't know how bad the program had gotten. And when I got there, I found out that they had 3 winning seasons in the previous 33 years. So they had 30 losing seasons over the last 33 years, and they'd won a championship twice. Once as a team under 500 team, and then they had another team about 2002, I want to say, that had a decent record and won their championship, won the community championship to go to the NCAA tournament, and it was the first round defeat from them. So I really didn't know what I was getting into, but I had a chance to watch some tape of the previous team, the 2010-11 season. And the more I looked at this tape, I said, wow, these guys are bad. And it's going to take some time. But I didn't get the job until April. I didn't get the job until August 15th of 2011. So I had no chance to recruit anybody. Admissions had been closed. You couldn't bring anybody in. So basically the first year or two, we were like, we had uniforms. We were like, I used to use this terminology. We were like intramurals with uniforms.
Got you.
And I knew it was going to be a couple long years, but I stayed there for 6 years, and it took some time to turn the program around. In my last year there, we were 17-10. Now, 17-10 on the college level is a good year. Not a great year, but it's a good year. But they had not had that kind of percentage record since 1950. So I left on a high note. We lost in the championship game. And I had made up my mind before that year started that 2016-17 season, I was going to retire at the end of that. So, I left on a high note. They were happy with me, and I was very happy with them. And it was just perfect job at the right time for me to take over and head off into the sunset, so to speak. So, nevertheless, it was a good experience for me overall. Different experience altogether. I mean, Division III at Drew my first year, and my last 6 years at Division III again. So that's a whole new world altogether with different circumstances, different problems. I went to my first practice one year after we determined cut our team to like 13 players, and I went to the first practice, and like 5 kids had texted me, said, "Coach, I can't be at practice today." Why is that? And well, my mom is coming home late. My little brother, I've got to watch my little brother. My part-time job. I've got to do an extra shift for my boss. Just all kind of problems that, from a Division I standpoint, you would never have. I mean, you're giving a kid a full scholarship, which is worth thousands and thousands of dollars, and but nevertheless, it's just a whole new world. But it was a unique experience. I'm glad I had the experience looking back on it, and nevertheless, I'm glad it ended on a very positive note.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And to
Kelvin
let y'all know,
Kelvin Bigelow, he had called me up that summer. Called me up, I want to say about the middle of July. He says, "Coach, are you aware there's a head job open at City College?" And I said, "Kelvin, I am. I'm going to interview for it next week." He said, "Oh, wow." And I said, "Kelvin, if I get it, you're going to be my top assistant coach." So we spent the next 6 years with Kelvin telling me what to do and barking in one ear, not the other ear during games. But it was a fun experience because Kelvin and I have been, we've been close since 1984. So when we recruited him to come to Fairleigh Dickinson. So great person, great individual, and a great basketball mind. So
yes,
a lot of fun for those 6 years just working with him.
still my big bro. He still checks in with me every now and again. He's been keeping me abreast of what you guys is doing those years. And I think he's at Mega Evers right now.
He is. Yeah. When he left City College and when I left, he was able to catch on at Mega Evers. And, he loves basketball. He's got a great basketball mind, can make great suggestions to the course of the game. Really, really, really big on defense. And I always harassed him. I said, "Kelvin, you were just, we recruited you as an offensive player, and now you're trying to advertise yourself as a defensive coach." But nevertheless,
Right.
Great basketball mind, to say the least.
He's an official basketball head for real. He's a basketball lifer. Yeah. And to go back to City College, City College was the only team in NCAA history to win the NCAA tournament and the NIT tournament. Same year.
In the same year, as a matter of fact, yes.
Yeah. So before we get out of here, Coach, if it's one thing you could change about your basketball journey, what would it be and why?
I've had some young people ask me that, would I have done anything differently as an assistant coach or, once I got the head coaching job or whatever it might have been. I tell them as an assistant coach, I did not do a great job of networking. I would run into all these really, big time names. You see them in the summer times, the Roy Williams, Rick Pitino's, people like that I know enough to say hello to, stop and shake hands with real quick and have a quick, 45-second conversation with. But I did not keep up my contacts the way I should have. And I tell young coaches that's what you got to do. You got to network in this day and age, especially with texting and emails. I mean, it makes it really easy to keep in touch with people. You got to leave so much time each day or so much time each week to do that, to keep in touch with people, to keep in touch with how other teams are doing, and just send them a quick note. Congratulations on a great game last night. A great win last night, et cetera, et cetera. Do that. That's one of the things I would have done as a younger assistant coach. And as a head coach, I had a chance to interview for other jobs. At one point, I had 14 interviews for other jobs along the way. And I was very, very fussy about the jobs I was looking at. And so many times I came back from an interview and, Margaret would say, "How was it?" I said, "Well, so you think the grass looks greener on the other side until you get there and look at it closely." And then it just wasn't my cup of tea. I remember one job that was out of the Midwest, and the school was in a very small town. And I came back, got my car in the parking lot at Newark, and I couldn't wait to blow the horn. Here's some noise. Here's some city noise. Here's some Northern Jersey turnpike noise. Yeah, there you go. Just like you got to go. Exactly. So, there's certain jobs that I looked at that just never was the right job for me at that time. And if we looking way back to the NCAA years, with those couple years that Marist was on probation when they were winning some championships, from Kelvin's first year at Fairleigh to his last year, those two years in between. Had they not recruited those players illegally, And we would have won those from 80, 85 and gone back to tournament in 86 and gone back again in 87. Certainly I would have jumped to another job at that point. Would have been offered a much better job, just publicly, so to speak, just a much better job with much more esteem. Paycheck would have been a whole lot nicer, et cetera, et cetera. But those cards didn't fall for me that way, and it just the job. Like I said, I interviewed 14 times, and it just was not the right job at the right time for me when I looked at the jobs. And there were definitely 5 that I ended up calling back up the AD within a day or two after the interview. I just told them point blank, I just want to take my name out of consideration so you can look at the other candidates a little closer, so to speak. So, I was happy at Fairleigh Dickinson. I was happy the people, the administration was happy with me for the most part. We always got along with people, and we try to put a good product on the court, and we did it for a long time. And you were a big part of that, Glenn, yourself as a player and as a team leader, and as a guy who just brought the right kind of character to the team on the court as well as off. And like you, there were many players. There were some players before you, and many players after you that all fell into that same mold, so to speak. Good person, great character, good person off the court, and a great person on the court. In the locker room, was a great teammate. You were a great teammate, and it's just something that every head coach is looking to have 12 of those. And if you have 12 guys like yourself, character-wise, that want to come to practice every day and work hard for you, you're going to win games, and you're going to have fun doing it. And 26 years at Fairleigh, and in the last 6 at City College, I had a lot of fun, and I had a lot of good memories to look back on. And people ask me about, how about some of those losses? And I said, I've forgotten all those guys. I forget.
we don't pay attention to those.
Oh,
we don't pay attention to those.
No. They're totally out of my memory. I lost them a long time ago.
That's right. And you've been doing it so long, Coach. You help so many players, and you help turn some young men into men and professionals. We all out here doing our thing. I've been an educator for over 22 years, and now dean, and got the #1 podcast in New York City. I'm actually the lead guy for high school sports. One of the league guys. There's a few of us, but I was able to put together the best players in the city. Since the newspaper don't cover it no more, I'm one of the guys who put out the all city list. And Coach Hartford,
yes,
from Queens, he's very connected to the Tom Kachowski Foundation. One day he was watching my show, and I talked about doing some things and bringing back some of the all-star games in New York City. And I was able to put together with himself, but I brought all the players together and came up with the idea to have the public schools play against the Catholic School League for the first ever Tom Kachowski Foundation last year. So it's this podcast and things I've been doing in basketball has been opened up a lot of doors for me, and I just want to say thank you for allowing me, spend time at Fairleigh Dickinson, get my degree, and turn into a professional. So appreciate you, Coach.
Glenn, I appreciate you as well. So yeah, I've been a fan of yours for a long time, my friend.
Same here. Thank you, Coach. I appreciate you coming on the show. Thanks to your wife and son. Super, super, super big shout out to your wife and your son for helping us get this together. Thank you, Coach, and I appreciate you. And I'm very thankful for having you on the show tonight and having you a part of my life. So enjoy your Thanksgiving and blessings to your family.
Glenn, thanks for having me on. Thanks for being part of your program here, and happy Thanksgiving to you as well.
Take care. Appreciate you, Coach. Man, wow. I was so looking forward to this since we scheduled this a couple of weeks back. And I would like to give a big shout out to all my teammates that was watching. Appreciate you guys. I love you guys. From Coach Biggs, Ballhead, my niece Dante was on the check-in, AB Money on the check-in. My guy, Ayatollah Beats, always on the check-in. Watch every show. Ronald McCants, Big Ron, appreciate you, brother. Everybody on the check-in, thank you. Thank you for all the support. My guy, CK, we talked about that early on the show. So if you want to go back and watch the portions about Syracuse, you can get that answer. Thank you, Ballhead. Again, thank you, Brad, for all the love and all your comments. Listen, this has become a full circle moment for myself because we go into college athletics having these grandeur thoughts about what you want to accomplish. And sometimes things don't always go how you plan. But if you look at the big picture and what I was able to accomplish there and all the connections that I made, to top it off with getting my degree and later on my master's degree, it all worked out. Sometimes we could be selfish in our own right, and we could point the finger at your accomplishments or lack thereof. But when you have a coach like Tom Green, who fully understands the plight of the player because he's been there, he's been at those moments, he's seen what could have been in his coaching career, but he stayed the course. And like me as a player, he understood that he served a bigger purpose in helping young men turn into men through basketball, along with being solid people, great students. We should just reverse that because we are student athletes. For all you young coaches, take heed tonight, all the lessons that Coach Tom Green laid out. For you players, a coach may come to see one player and may end up recruiting someone else, like Charlie Roberts. You never know what life is going to bring you. But if you stay positive, you live right, you have good thoughts, great things may happen. Well, I want to say thank you to Coach Tom Green for coming on, sharing portions of his life and his great, legendary coaching career and all the people we have touched along the way. I want to say we love you, Coach. We appreciate you. For sure. Definitely. Thank you, Brad. That's right. Happy Thanksgiving to all the basketball heads out there. Y'all enjoy yourselves. And I'm about to get out of here. I am your host, Glenn Poole Harding, and you've been watching Basketball Heads on NYC Basketball History, because we are the official home for New York City basketball. And as we always do around this time, peace.